This is the Gentle Rebel Podcast, episode 308.
The Gentle Rebel Podcast.
For introverts, highly sensitive people, and creative misfits.
Hello and welcome to the Gentle Rebel Podcast, where I explore how to live a more meaningful life as a sensitive, creative type person without getting overwhelmed by all the absurdity, noise and hostility of our modern world. My name is Andy Mort. I'm a songwriter, performer and massive introvert. And right now, like everybody else, a recluse under lockdown. I really love helping other Gentle Rebels find the courage and perspective required to make their own quiet stand for what truly matters in life to them. Welcome to episode number 308, where today I want to talk about connection and connecting. Okay, so this is it's quite a big one. It's a bit of a dense and jam-packed episode, potentially the longest episode of the Gentle Rebel podcast ever. I mean, safe to say it probably, well, definitely will be. But I'm finding kind of long-form podcasts quite helpful right now. I really enjoy them. I love feeling kind of connected to presenters in a deeper way than, you know, the kind of little short snippety things that feel a little bit more like broadcasts or adverts. I mean, I've got more time to really delve in and listen right now. So think of this as a bit of a hangout. I'll be hanging out in your ears for the next hour, maybe hour and a half or so. I've got a few songs to kind of break up the chatter as well. Speaking of which, I'm doing some live stream gigs over the coming weeks as I'm recording this. So some on Facebook, some on YouTube Live, and in the Haven as well. The doors to which I am opening today. So I'm releasing this Friday, the 27th of March, 2020. And yeah, things are mad at the moment, and I want to invite people in. It's free 2-week trial, so you can sort of come in and have a look around. Earlier this week, I did the very first live cafe hour in there as well, which is something I'd never considered doing before. And it's now a concept I'm really looking forward to developing and seeing evolve over the next weeks and months. And basically, it's just an opportunity for anyone who wants to come and hang out, have some gentle conversation, essentially give themselves space and time to work on meaningful things, whether it's, you know, stuff like reading a book or writing or even kind of admin things like answering emails, which I'm probably going to use the time for, or practicing a hobby, learning something, or just resting. You know, it's going to be a co-being space where we've got a kind of we hear a lot, you know, people advise in the productivity space, say, you know, create an appointment with yourself, put it in the diary, and schedule it in so that you definitely get done the important stuff, not just the urgent stuff, and you can tell people that you've got an appointment, and they don't need to know that it's just with yourself. But even that's not enough sometimes, because that can slip, because, you know, that's what we're like as humans. So yeah, it's kind of creating a specific time where we come to a co-being space. Who can be alone together for a little chunk of time and then come back together and have a little chat, you know, for anyone who wants to share anything that's going on and just ask questions and just have a bit of community there. So yeah, it's just a good way to kind of check in and stay connected. It was a really, really lovely time this week when we did it, very chilled out. And if you're interested in that and want to come and try out the Haven for 2-week trial, then come to the-haven.co and find out a bit more about that. So, okay, anyway, back to this week's show. As well as playing some songs, I'm really excited to be joined by some friends as well who have some stuff to add a little bit later on. I sent an email out a few days ago just with some questions asking Jacob Norby, Kat Rose, Carol Chapman, Neil Hughes, Mark Pierce, Lydia Wilmson, Lauren Sapala and Ben Fizzle are all, yeah, they all kind of sent me their responses to 2 questions that I asked, and it's really cool to be able to bring that. It's kind of similar to the Serenity in the Trenches project that I did just before the end of last year. And it just, adds a bit of depth to things, like rather than just my own thoughts. So they're going to be helping us explore the idea of connection and possibility in times of upheaval, uncertainty, and crisis. Because, well, hey, these are extraordinary times. You don't need me to remind you of that if you're listening around the time that I'm recording this, because right now, as I record this, we're in the heart of the global coronavirus pandemic. I'm thinking of all those people who are suffering and struggling right now. I'm doing what I can to keep connected. I was thinking yesterday about my extrovert friends, because it dawned on me that the physical isolation it's not a huge drag for me. Like, it kind of looks in many ways like normal life. So I'm well equipped to stay energized during moments like this. I've kind of been building some consistent routines as well around exercise and journaling and trying to stay nutritious and all that sort of stuff. Doing some connecting on Zoom, checking in with people that way. But the realization that for many of my extrovert friends, this is going to be a hugely tough time. And I was thinking it's kind of a good moment of empathy, really, when thinking about, like, I was like, it's a bit like, being thrown into a conference for an unknown length of time without any days off. So it's just constant mingling, just constantly exposed to external stimulation and that kind of stuff without any sense of respite. So, there's been a bunch of talk by introverts and sensitive types that this is where all our practice pays off, and it absolutely is. It's a strangely helpful temperament to have right now. We've been practicing for this all our lives, but maybe we can increase empathy, but to hold a thought for those extroverts who need people and experiences for energy creation, who aren't getting that, and they might be sinking quite low at the moment. So just to hold them. And to keep connected with them in whatever ways are appropriate. And also for any extroverts who are experiencing that stuff, to just connect the dots and raise awareness that, for introverts, this is how we feel often when we're not given that alone time and that space to recharge in isolation and with physical distancing at times of mad busyness and, socializing. It's not a competition. It's not a time to say, see, the tables have turned. There you go. It's just a chance to raise awareness and have a little aha moment on behalf of other people, and to I suppose just connect into that, bringing things into the theme of this episode. So you may be looking, if you're watching the video version of this, thinking, what are you wearing? I was supposed to be in Lapland this week, hanging out with my Finnish friends, Tula and Timo. Hasn't happened for obvious coronavirus reasons, which is absolutely gutting. And until a couple of days ago, I had my pile of thermals and my hat and my snow boots, specially purchased snow boots, sat there ready to go. This morning I thought, well, I don't know when I'm going to get to wear them, so I'm wearing them now. If you're watching the video version, you might be able to see. I'll share a photo too if you're just listening. Probably can't see my boots anyway, but it's all good fun. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, use my loop pedal very effectively with these big clunky boots on, but we'll see. So I never really know how to approach stuff like this because, on the one hand, I don't want to kind of just add to the noise where everyone has something and nothing to say to the sort of, spirit of the time. But on the other hand, there's a little point talking about other stuff as if this isn't happening and as if this hasn't kind of changed anything or everything, because it has and it is. It's continuing to do. It's the water in which we are currently swimming and which we might be swimming for a very long time. And, even when the lockdowns end and this kind of, we sort of move to the next stage out of this, everything's going to have shifted in some way. We've no idea what that will look like yet, but things will be different. And if you're listening to this, way down the line in the future, you'll know that. But this is a significant historical moment. It feels like that. Earlier this year, I did an episode on the topic of spirit. I just mentioned that word. Reflecting our hopes and dreams for 2020 beneath what I call this kind of spirit priority. In other words, the spirit within which we do things. And I talked about mine being kind of a sense of creative play for 2020. So like the way that I go about doing everything would be within this spirit of creative play. So it'd be both the kind of yardstick by which I measure things and the bubble I surround myself with as I engage with activities and well, everything really. And it's funny to think back to the start of the year now. You know, for many of us, like things have been completely turned on their head. I mean, for everybody. And there's a sense of freedom in this. The pressure is kind of off. And I want to stress now that anyone telling us that, you know, this is our moment, we've got no excuses, we should be creating and learning and building stuff. There's no outside I mean, there's plenty of outside distractions, but there's no excuse for not using this time. Well, firstly, you know, there are distractions. There are many, especially for parents as well, and for anybody worried about this thing, which I think everybody who's got a rational mind in some way is going to be worried about at least one part of this. And secondly, nothing great gets created from that sort of mindset, from that place of fear. We had our first live Haven Cafe session a few days ago, which I mentioned, and we were talking about this kind of unfair pressure that is emerging in many places on social media by, you know, influencers and bloggers and those kinds of people. And Josie made the point that, you know, Shakespeare probably had childcare, if it's true that he wrote King Lear during the bubonic plague in the kind of late 1500s, early 1600s. It's probably also fair to say that lockdowns due to disease were commonplace and part of everyday life for long swathes of time. And so to equate the achievement of writing a specific thing with lockdown is kind of a leap that might not actually be appropriate. In my experience, these situations make creativity harder, not easier. You know, because they kind of, I need boundaries around my time in order to focus better, and I need not to be distracted by, you know, existential threats prohibiting me from doing, you know, normal things. Anyway, this is just to say, ignore those calls to write that novel that you've been putting off, or building that business that you've been itching to start. Let those things kind of draw you towards themselves naturally because you're curious, not because you're scared or because someone's telling you, like, you know, you're going to regret not using this time. Actually, just be gentle with yourself. Allow yourself to slow down, to reflect, to be, to feel. This is a collective opportunity to let go of that abusive message of productivity. You know, the world is turned upside down for all of us. This is a moment of collective, a collective opportunity to just breathe. And as we do so, we might just find that we gravitate towards things that matter to us, even things that matter more to us than the things we think we should be sort of, you know, throwing ourselves into. And we might just start to explore our curiosities. We might just pick up the guitar, have a noodle around. Speaking of which, actually, I'm not going to pick up the guitar, but I'm going to have a little break at this point and sing the songs that I've selected to play in this episode are kind of, I don't know, relevant in many ways to the situation in my own sort of morbid way. Dark room, hard car. I have spent all week in here. One more minute, dark room, hard car. I am turning weak from fear. See these eyes, they're turning on. In my mind in a dark room, oh God. I am turning weak from fear. See these eyes, they're turning off. In my mind, there's nothing much. Through the mill and out the door, you convince me to my thoughts. There's a beat in the palm of my hand. It is beating with the rhythm of the band. There's a beat in the palm of my hand. It is beating with the rhythm of the band. We have one more minute, let's not waste it like the other 2001 that I fill my week with pointless noises, dead exchanges just to get along. 17 seconds, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Cool. So before that, I mentioned this spirit thing, which is something I've been thinking about again in preparation for this episode, because it's kind of where we're at now. So to ignore the coronavirus and talk about whatever else I'd planned before, I had some other topics in mind that I wanted to sort of approach in the podcast this year, but that would be just to ignore the spirit in which I'm sort of traveling. The zeitgeist. It's funny. I've noticed myself with when I'm choosing stuff to listen to or to read or to watch. There are podcast episodes that are on my feed. They're queued up. They're ready for me. But I'm like, and 2 weeks ago I'd have lapped them up, but I have absolutely no interest in them because they're kind of outside of the spirit of this moment, and they kind of feel a bit irrelevant. And I was thinking about what is that? Because I don't want to just listen to things about the coronavirus, about physical distancing and all this stuff. I don't want to immerse myself within that. But I think I desire things that are created or shared within the spirit of, within the acknowledgement, within the kind of water, the air, the oxygen of what's going on, acknowledging the reality. And part of what feels jarring is this blissful comfort from which things outside of this moment were created, and this sort of sense of like, actually, the reality that those things assume to be kind of present and true has shifted somewhat. And I was listening to the Why Theory podcast this week. A few days ago, I was out for my morning run, and in an episode called "Coronavirus and Its Discontents," Todd and Ryan brought up the idea of an event. So I'm probably going to butcher this completely because I am not certainly not knowledgeable about Alain Badiou and philosophical stuff, although it fascinates me, goes over my head quite a lot. But they were talking about what constitutes an event in the way that Alain Badiou describes it, and there's something really interesting about this idea, I love kind of grappling with mind-bending philosophical concepts, and hopefully this won't be too sort of, I don't know, stodgy as we go through it. But they talked about the fact that the jury's still out on whether Badiou would class this as an event, the coronavirus situation, because he's got very specific markers for such a definition, come under one of 4 truth procedures. So events happen in art, in politics, in science, and love. But Ryan quoted Badiou from an interview where he explained what he meant, or what is meant by an event in kind of the simplest terms that he has come across. And he says, an event is something that brings to light a possibility that was invisible or even unthinkable. An event itself is not by itself the creation of a reality. It is the creation of a possibility. It opens up a possibility. It indicates to us that a possibility exists that has been ignored. So I love this idea, that an event is a moment when new possibility is kind of illuminated. Possibility is what emerges. It changes everything, brings forth something that was previously impossible because it was invisible, or it was beyond comprehension, or it was hidden within or beneath the situation. The social scene is ruptured, and previously excluded parts of reality suddenly become visible. They suddenly become possible. It seems that key here is that the rupture also makes previous states of normality an impossibility. You can't go back. It's a moment that evokes an inability to return to the old. It's like the idea of an event horizon, the point of no return on the edge of a black hole. Yeah, I'm not a physicist. I know that it's a bit more complicated than that. But, I think this resonates in some way with why I'm finding it hard to listen to things that speak specifically to old normals. Because even when considering the idea of getting back to normal after this, it seems clear that normal is going to be a little bit different. It might be completely different. Light is starting to shine on certain political and economic ideals that are actually rendered fairly impotent when push comes to shove, and we're in the reality of what they're trying to hold them up to the light of reality. We're being confronted by profound truth that, individualism in many senses of the word is a pile of steaming horse crap. The rupture to our completely numb sense that we are in control of our own lives and completely self-sufficient and looking after number one and all that sort of stuff, is questioned from the inside out. And it's shown to be just completely untrue. The reality that we are all connected, that we're all one in the big ecosystem of things, that feels really confrontational, really stark. It's there for us all to see, for us all to feel, for us all to experience. Connection, community, and co-being. It's at the heart of what it means to be human. And we've spent decades trying to convince ourselves otherwise.
there's no looking. Stop starting, no one is laughing, running and turning, there's no looking. Stop starting, no one is laughing, running and turning, there's no looking. Stop starting, no one is laughing, running and turning, there's no looking. Red clothes and riches, rabbit meat and fishes, where books read our minds on the clock beats the time, 'cause the lazy men sit, they try sarcastic wit. It's a new record high while you curl up and challenge it. Say my hand, I'm hunting for rabbits to the front, oh, to same rabbit.
All right, so how are we connecting and how are we connected? So this is an idea I want to explore a bit in this episode. As I mentioned earlier, I reached out to a few people this week and asked them a couple of questions. I'm really, really glad that so many came back to me and offered their responses. I wanted to just bring a wider perspective than simply my own, so that, that there's just, I think this is such a broad and complex situation and people going through so many different things and people from different backgrounds and stuff. So I wanted to represent that. So it's going to have a similar feel to the Serenity in the Trenches series that I did at the end of 2019. Some input from people that I really respect and love hearing from. And some of whom I've actually just recently met thanks to projects that I've been involved with that they've also been involved with, and Zoom calls that I've been on over the past couple of weeks. So these are questions that I think are really helpful for all of us to think about as we go through this. And these aren't just questions for the people responding, but they're questions for everybody. They're quite useful to just reflect on. Indeed, after this situation concludes, they're still going to be relevant. They're still nice grounding questions that provide us with a sense of belonging and a sense of kind of rootedness in the present. And so the first question that I asked was, how are you connecting right now? And so I asked this in a pretty open way. Just get us thinking about, what connection is, what connection feels like. How does it look in our lives? And how are we seeing connection in the world around us? After all, at the heart of this situation is a virus, which by its nature requires connection in order to exist, in order to do its job, in order to create itself and make itself relevant. I think there's so much metaphorical power in this idea as we think about the many viral implications that spread out from this. The virality of panic, of the spread of information, of positive stories, of examples of the way that we can use this situation to make the world better, of behaviors, of ideas. And so in many ways, the actual coronavirus itself is only one tiny part of the viruses that we've seen spreading from person to person, community to community, state to state, and throughout the world. Firstly, a few people mentioned the power of technology right now. There's so much software that's been, it's existed, it's there, but so many of us have either been unaware of it or that we've been unversed in it. And this is a really great opportunity to use the stuff that's there for us, the tools that are there that we can use to connect. And Lauren Sapala shared how she's broadened her use of this stuff to include other people that she might not previously have included.
I always use Zoom because I'm a coach and I normally do video sessions with my clients. But since this has all happened, I've added in mastermind groups and just calls with friends. It's nice to see people's faces. And I've been connecting with people all over the world. I have clients in Australia. I have a guy in Germany. My mastermind group is a guy from London and a woman from Florida. So it's nice to check in with people and see, just how it's going for them too.
this is really important to utilize if we're feeling disconnected. And also to be mindful of those who might be isolated and outside of the loop, to perhaps help others be in a position to utilize this stuff. And to pick people we're committed to keep in connection with. Intention is really important here as well. The permission to say no, because there is a danger within physical isolation that we suddenly become a lot more accessible in the sense of people thinking, you're at home, you've got nothing to do. Like, why can't you answer the phone? I had a bit of a moment like that last week, and felt a bit trapped because I was like, wait a second, I'm being bombarded here. And then remembered, actually, you can say no. You can be intentional and choose, okay, these are the people that I am going to commit to connecting with, and to do so to help people graciously as well, helping people identify other people to support and to be supported by. Mark Pierce had a couple of encouraging reflections on this question.
The use of technology, whether it's picking up the phone, sending text messages, using Skype, Zoom, that kind of thing, to make sure that the people that are important to you and the people you want to maintain relationship with, or people that are maybe isolated, use those because it's such a wonderful time to have this technology at a time like this, that we don't have to, in a time of physically distancing, we don't actually have to socially distance.
Really important point to get across with the terminology here. Thanks, Mark, for emphasizing it. The phrase social distancing is kind of wrong. It's physical distancing, like in terms of our physical locations, not being in the same physical proximity as people. We're connected through all these means which lead us to be socially near, even if we're not physically next to each other. And that's it might sound like a semantic difference, but it's a really important thing for us to carry, because social means so much more these days than being physically present with somebody. We can be socially close to people the other side of the world when we connect through phone calls and through Skype or Zoom or whatever. And Kat Rose shared similar thoughts as well.
Well, for me, video calls have been a lifesaver. I'm making sure to call my parents every week. We have a Sunday evening set time. I don't want it to get less regular than that, so I found having a real day in time important. I have a big family, so soon we're going to be doing some group family calls, which I think will be interesting. And I've been checking in with friends a lot more than I normally would. So I'm spending more time on WhatsApp and, again, having chats over tea in our virtual spaces. So using things like Skype and Zoom, they're real lifesavers here. And I really mean a lifesaver, because even though I'm an introvert, I know my limits. And I know that just because it can feel easy for me to go days without seeing anyone in person, I still desperately need to connect with others. I need to be heard. I need to hear others, and ideally to see them, even if it's just on video. I just need to remember that it's important for me not to go too long without getting those moments of connection, just because I think I can.
Man, I'd be fascinated to hear how Kat gets on with big group family calls. I find large calls quite difficult. I still prefer one-to-one or very small groups, much the same as in real life. Although it is so much better than it was 5 to 10 years ago in terms of clarity of picture and sound and the kind of delays that you get, there are still aspects of communication that you just miss when you're not in the same physical location as other people. It'll be really interesting to see how we get on, if this is a thing that lasts a long time with only having digital contact with the majority of people, with people that you don't live with or work with. I was really glad that Lydia Sophia Wilmsen, who is a business coach and runs the Sensitive Entrepreneurs Facebook group, was able to share her thoughts with me as well.
So we do live in interesting times, I have to say. And I am lucky, I'm privileged. I can do business as usual. I have an online business. So for me, nothing really changed. I am with my family here. We have beautiful nature where it's just us. So I'm really fortunate when it comes to that. And what I offer to others is that I obviously connect with them even more. I connect more with my friends, and I even connect more with my family, because we do things like playing a lot of games, spending time together that we never do usually, or not on that level. So I see that there is a lot of connection coming from the external world. Like, we are connecting with others, but we are also connecting with our friends and family, like at home, when you have people around you.
It's really interesting that this is changing the way we connect. We're coming up with creative ways to both communicate and interact. And I mean, wouldn't it be amazing to see kind of new habits taking root? Although there's loads to watch on Netflix and Amazon Prime and Now TV, whatever, there's a growing realization that we need more than entertainment. You know, we are more than consumers. We are creators. We are connectors. And to keep ourselves energized and stimulated, we're getting creative and exploring these new possibilities. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see what this makes possible in the long run. As I said earlier, it's kind of a strange time for introverts and highly sensitive people as well. You know, we're able to continue relaxing in many of the same ways that we normally would. You know, for me, much of my life, other than a few times a week when I normally go out and see people, it just stays exactly the same. Neil Hughes is always someone I absolutely love to get input from. I love his honesty, his just really natural demeanour. And so, yeah, I had to ask him what he thought. And this is what he said.
Andy, hello, Neil here. So today, I have no idea, days have no meaning, but it's our day, and thank you for your questions. I'll do my best to answer them now. So, how are you connecting right now? Well, badly, obviously, but also kind of well. It's been weird. I've barely seen any humans in weeks. I'm fine. I'm just kind of doing my best to stay away from people unless necessary. And there's been a bit of an outbreak of random texts from old friends, acquaintances, random strangers on Facebook. The times when I have nipped outside, to nip to the shop or whatever, there's been moments of connection with strangers, just where we kind of make eye contact and, from a social distancing distance, and just share that sense of being, this is weird, isn't it? Like, there's just a moment of connection there, this shared loneliness, which is making it all a bit less lonely. So that's been my experience so far. It's weird. I don't really have words to describe it because it's kind of normal. Like, that's the other thing, is 99% of what I'm experiencing is normal. I'm in my flat, I'm living my life, and then I just go outside less. I'm doing less, but I'm doing less in a state of normality, which is very strange.
Wow, what a beautiful reflection. The shared experience of loneliness brings a connection between us at that deeper level. I know when I've been out on my early morning runs, just exchanging glances with people from a distance, that is kind of acknowledging the absurdity of this situation. That sense of like, oh, is this really happening? It's not just me, right? And there's something powerful about the real sense of belonging that comes into focus through those kinds of connections. In the week leading up to the distancing measures, I'd been washing my hands in a public bathroom, and there was this moment I felt this shared energy with other people doing the same. And there was one where there was another bloke stood next to me, and we were both trying to. The hot tap was really, really hot, and we were both just like laughing together about the fact that we're trying desperately to be washing our hands for 20 seconds in this scalding hot water. And there's something really beautiful about that connection, something that just doesn't happen in normal life, and that sense of being connected into something far bigger than our own little individual lives, I guess. Acknowledging our own fragility as small human animals in the great expanse of all time and space, but also our shared experience in this moment of significance where all we have is now, and all that truly matters when all is said and done is one another, is those connections that we have within the kind of ecosystem of human life itself, when suddenly life's trivialities don't seem to matter as much as they did. Now, I know that won't last forever. We are good at adapting to new normals and finding things to get dramatic about, but it's an experience that will stick with me. I absolutely love what Jacob Nordby shared as well.
Hey Andy, it's Jacob Nordby. I'm so happy to participate in what you're doing here, and I love you guys. I love all the Gentle Rebels. And as far as connecting, God, it's such an important question. And obviously, the entire world is just feeling so fractured and upside down. And, you know, sometimes the normal places that we go to connect, like social media, are just full of static. And our email inboxes right now are full of static. What I'm noticing is that spending time with my kids at home is such a rich experience right now. And because we're here, and not running around doing our usual busy lives, there's time. And, something that happened with my family recently, because I have brothers and sisters all over the country, and we did a family Zoom conference for the first time last week. And it was surprising how, we love each other and we always enjoy each other's company. But it's easy to go weeks and weeks sometimes without talking to everyone. And my youngest brother, also named Andrew, my mom calls him Andy, was there for the first time. We haven't talked to him for months, and he's by himself up there in Seattle. And so that Zoom conference was such a rich experience for us. We laughed, and we just reminded each other of how much we care. So that's, I think, one thing that I wanted to highlight was just how technology and using these tools can be used, to continue to spread fear and static and frustration, or it can be done like that, where there's laughter and there's connection.
Yeah, man, I love this. Such a thing to remember. Yeah, I mentioned the way that the viruses of fear and panic have spread easily. The word static encapsulates something within that as well. White noise, fuzz. And this is that reminder that we get to choose what we do with those tools, how we use them. Over recent years, social media and certain things online have been talked about in really negative ways. Spreading unhealthy messages for people, especially younger people, and the way that it's used to just divide people, the conversations that you've seen on Facebook, like politically and all that kind of stuff. But that's just one way of communicating. And it's exactly the same as real life. People can go to the pub and complain, argue, gossip, fight. Or they can go to the pub and laugh and support each other and connect. I really love how Ben Fizzle unpacks the idea of connection as well.
So I'm connecting at the moment in a few ways. And the first one that's really tangible for me is this global quiet that's happening around the world. As a result of what's happening in the world is slowing down. The busy, hectic lifestyle that humanity usually has is, for now, slowing down. And it's really tangible, and we can feel it. And for me, I feel it deeply in my heart because I feel more connected to humanity. Because remember, we're all part of this environment of humanity that we live in. We all contribute. And this global quiet is a result of all of us slowing down.
This is such a peaceful way of seeing things. I keep coming back to the analogy of like an aeroplane before a long-haul flight. The cabin is full, like the doors are shut. There's this real nervous energy, this anxious tension. We're thinking, like, we're going to spend the next 10, 12 hours or whatever in this tiny cabin together. People getting up and down, getting stuff out their bags, opening the overhead locker, taking the bag out, getting something out, then putting the bag back up, seatbelts on and off, messing with the entertainment system, seeing what's there. There's all this kind of frenetic, jittery energy going around, this buzz around the cabin. But then things settle. After takeoff, usually the first meal comes around, and then when everything's cleared away, there's this kind of calmness and this stillness that fills the cabin. A rhythm, both like individually and collectively. People hit this kind of pacing and this stride, and they get through. And that's the image that's really been kind of underpinning this moment for me over the past week or so.
Another way I'm connecting is just reaching out to family, friends through Skype, phone calls, or even simple text messages, just to say hi, how are you? I really feel like this is an important thing to do at the moment. Stay connected to people, even if we're not physically in their presence. I'm also trying to spend some time in nature, just the stillness of nature and being outside. And another one is meditation, connecting to the stillness inside. And for me, this is always important, but now it's like the world needs this more than ever, because the future is still uncertain where we're going to go from here. So this is really important. And for me, I'm also running more free live meditations, global meditations online to bring more people together to connect in stillness, and so that we realize we're not alone. So those are several ways that I'm connecting personally at the moment and trying to bring connection into the world.
I've been blown away by the generosity of people during this time, you know, in response to need and the desire of people to connect with others and themselves, the need that people are kind of expressing. And it's really beautiful what people are giving. And what's fascinating is plugging into live stuff as well. You know, in a time in our modern world, we can get everything on demand as and when we want it. But this connection with kind of live streaming has become really prevalent. It's really big. A sense that we kind of long to be connecting alongside others at the same time. You know, sharing the sense of space and time. You know, when others are there as well. That's what I love about, you know, watching sport. You're kind of experiencing this in real time. The drama is new for everyone as it's unfolding. And I guess on some level, it's the same as, you know, when you're going through a crisis like this, that nobody's been through this before. You know, this is a truly unique situation. And those people, including the experts who are guiding us through this, although they've been preparing and thinking about this possibility, they've never been through it. And that's where bonds of connection are forged, when we realize that we're all heading into the unknown together. And it's those moments in all areas of life, on small scales as well as large scales like this, that uncertainty and a sense of adventure forges profoundly strong bonds between people.
And another point is that there is a chance for us to connect with ourselves. Like, we have a time of massive slowdown. And there is a huge chance for us in that to really go inside and see what's going on. Like, a lot of patterns will show up. A lot of panic and fear usually comes from other fears. It's not the outer circumstances. It is stuff which is already in us. And now we have the time to really look and go deep.
So true, Lydia. Kind of scary as well. I've loved this. You know, people needing to do some inner work right now, and having the opportunity to do it. And it's kind of amazing to see what's going on. Like Lauren said earlier, just those big connections being made within and internally. And Carol Chapman is also doing the same.
I'm connecting on the inner. I'm meditating a lot more and spending more time doing inner work to help heal others and the planet. And it's such an empowering feeling because I don't feel helpless or fearful. I feel like I'm doing something. And by going on the inner, I feel as though I'm connecting with others in a telepathic sort of way through my meditations.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Carol. And that, again, that sense of almost shared experience, shared connection with other people that happens through that live experience. I share this sense of calmness and peace. I guess a large part of this is thanks to all the inner work I've been doing over the past few years for myself, you know, releasing myself from magical thinking in the sense of attaching, I don't know, almost kind of superstitious outcomes to rituals and behaviors, to relinquish the need to control, to hoard, to resent, and to replace that with a desire to connect through stillness and peace, and just to model that, to share it with the world. You know, this is a situation that brings out stuff that we might not know is there. And there is fear in seeing that. I've noticed that in, that there is a kind of reluctance to let the noise fade in certain quarters. The need to stay connected might actually manifest in unhealthy ways for some of us at different times, where we, you know, dare not sit alone with our thoughts because we're not used to that and we don't want to see what comes up. And for those of us who are a bit better versed in those practices, I suppose, those stillness practices, I guess this is an opportunity to help support and encourage those who are usually able to stay distracted to keep the noise levels up, to keep busy, to keep moving, to keep that frenetic sense of energy as they fritter around the world. And for those of us who are like that, perhaps those whose immediate reaction is, connect with everybody through live streams and phone calls, and I'm going to get onto Zoom with everyone, I'm going to volunteer as much as possible, and I'm just going to keep myself busy. If that's where we're at, to just check in with ourselves, to ask, what is that? Am I running away from or hiding something from myself here? And as we'll explore in a bit, what possibilities might I be papering over in keeping myself from stilling myself, turning down the noise, checking in with myself at that kind of deeper soul's level? We can kind of draw parallels here with the therapeutic process. When you go into therapy, you confront the rituals and the habits that you use in order to protect yourself from an absence or loss of meaning in your life, or those things that you do to protect yourself from the things that you're afraid of. The tools we use to try and control the uncertain and chaotic truth of life itself. We hide within certainties or beliefs about the way things are, the way we are, and the meaning of life itself. And in therapy, you kind of confront those stories that you tell yourself, the things that you believe about these things. And it's painful, and it's uncomfortable, and it's horrible. The reality we construct as a result of upbringing and experience, and reinforcing those defense mechanisms that we've used over and over to stave off those threats, those things that we're afraid of. We construct a meaning. And in therapy, this kind of sense of narrative is unthreaded, and everything you thought was real is kind of brought into question. You're confronted with it. And the only way out is through. You can't go back. You just have to keep going in and keep going deeper. And that is terrifying. You don't want to look at that stuff. But ultimately, it's in going into those things, those traumas, those anxieties, those antagonisms and contradictions. It's when you do that you find the ability to embrace them as part of what gives life meaning itself, and what gives you a sense of actually this bigger story of and picture of who you are as a person. And as society, we've got great at numbing ourselves, medicating with meaningless pursuits that distract us from our own existential anxiety. Beliefs in all sorts of magical thinking, like money and fame is going to be what makes you happy, and lots of stuff in the kind of self-help genre as well. This magical thinking of this is the thing, this is the secret, this is the thing that's going to change everything, or whatever. Or on the kind of social level or political level, some politician is going to bring salvation to the country. This is going to be the thing that changes everything. And we scapegoat individuals, we scapegoat groups of individuals because we're afraid to go deeper into the heart of what is actually causing our collective anxiety. And in so doing, we actually develop an ever deeper anxiety and process of self-destructive behavior, collective compulsive behaviors and addictions. We can see these destructive pursuits over and over in recent history all around the world. These things that we do to ourselves as a collective that destroys what we are because we're unwilling to go into the stuff that's sort of beneath it all. But a moment of rupture such as this provides an opportunity, just like therapy, if we're courageous enough to go there, to connect with our traumas, our anxieties, our antagonisms, and to let go of the magical thinking that keeps us destroying ourselves and one another.
To establish and maintain vital connections during this very strange time in history, we find ourselves. I've been doing a few things. Firstly is to make sure that I'm connected with myself somewhat, and I've been doing that by either picking up one of these guitars here for 5 minutes at a time, or stepping out into the garden, allowing myself to look at the clouds floating past, and I've been doing some writing as well. And I think it's important to stress that you don't need hours and hours and hours at a time if it's becoming very claustrophobic at home. Just 5 minutes, small doses, can do a lot to regulate and bring calm. So that's the kind of stuff that I've been doing, and it's been working well. And the third thing that I've been experiencing has been while going out on walks and stuff. Is often we'll try and go out to places where there are not many people, obviously, but when you do come across someone, they'll either step aside for us or we'll step aside for them, and it's a very strange and unnatural thing to do. And I found that just making eye contact and smiling and saying, "Isn't this weird?" is enough to break the isolation and create a human contact. And I find that's a very important thing, and it's borne some fruit, and smiles are broken out on people, and you can see the others relax, and it brings calm to you as well. So they're the kind of things that I've been doing to create and maintain connection.
Oh, Mark picks up on something I've really noticed here. When I've been out on those early morning runs, those knowing glances I said earlier, connecting with people across the street, looks that are saying, "Wow, this is crazy." And I'm feeling this bond that's beginning to shatter those old prison walls where we've been building resentment and distrust over the past few years. The energy shift is a real opportunity to take place, where this kind of transcends beliefs and politics and surface level differences that we might have with other people. This connects us all deeply and profoundly at that vulnerable level, at that level of human fragility. And if we reject the idea, then we reject a very fundamental part of what it means to be human. This connecting takes place, and it takes us far deeper than our own self-righteousness, our own need to be right, and our own beliefs about the world. It confronts us with the most fragile truth, that all we have is now, and who we are is how we connect with and love other people.
Stay close, feel close. This pretense has got us nowhere. The generous, they don't care. Caught out, more drought, taking on a change of heart now. Making up for failing big crowds, and whenever you say, "Help me if you can, I'm on my way back down." Help me kick the can, or else I think I'll sink and drown. And I don't know if I can float this time around. And I don't know if I can float this time around. Slip by, red night. Everybody there was so proud. Everybody there looked so now, and they heard us cry for help me if you can, I'm on my way back down. Help me kick the can, or else I think I'll sink and drown. And I don't know if I can float this time around. And I don't know if I can float this time around. To hit the bottom before I could start climbing up, could start climbing up again. To hit the bottom when I could not get enough, could not get enough of it. To hit the bottom before I could start climbing up, could start climbing up again. To hit the bottom when I could not get enough, could not get enough of it.
Right, on to possibility. So what does this make possible? This has been a question that I can't get away from in my mind. Coming back to what I was saying earlier about Alain Badiou, I guess in a sense, an event is beyond the choice of possibility. It presents the inevitability of possibility. So possibility is all we have. It demands that, what was previously unseen or impossible, these things are now possible, where our old reality is ruptured and new reality is inevitable, where there is no way back. Through necessity and desire, possibilities are emerging in terms of our, way of working. So we're having to, change the way we work. So remote working, remote communication in families and in friendship circles through video conferencing, that kind of thing. We're confronted by time alone, time to think, time to reflect. People might be starting journals, building new habits, ending old habits. And this rupture of normal isn't an opportunity for possibilities if you look at it in the right way, but rather possibilities are inevitable. We can't escape them. And also the decisions being made at governmental level to keep citizens safe is going to create a profound and lasting rupture on the way that we organise ourselves moving forward. It will have a lasting impact on our economies and the roles of both private capital and the state. And with this comes a range of feelings. It's traumatic and scary, but it also opens up possibility, indicating the existence of possibilities that we've been unable to see, we've been unable to kind of even ponder or think of until something like this occurs. And here the question I asked my friends was, what does this make possible for you, for us, for our future together as a connected world of human beings?
I feel like we're going to see a great return to simplicity in some ways. And we have the opportunity, the longer this crisis goes on, the more we are going to have to rely on ourselves and each other to, like yesterday, I drove down the street and there was a table sitting beside the road with a bunch of cans of food and boxes of rice, and there was a box of books underneath it. And it was so exciting to see that the neighbors had gotten together and just put this table out there to share with others who needed it. And so I feel like the sense of humanity, the sense that we are all in this together. The bad news is we're all in this together. The good news is we're all in this together. The entire world is experiencing this. And this is the first time in most of our lifetimes, maybe all of our lifetimes, that the entire world has had to agree upon a single problem. No matter what your politics are, no matter what country you live in, no matter what you believe, we all have to agree this is a problem. This is a human problem. For the first time, I've never seen anything like this. So I think it's a tremendous opportunity for us to use this time that can be boring and empty to begin to go within and reflect, and then begin to treat each other with a lot more compassion. Thank you so much, Andy.
Oh, thank you, Jacob. This is so true. It's got to be truly the most global situation in history. Talking to people everywhere in the world, no one is untouched, and many are experiencing exactly the same levels of restriction as one another, whether you're here or the other side of the world. There's something really powerful about this truth that we've found something that transcends politics, transcends demographics and location and belief and all of that stuff. This is uniting us. It's a thing, as Jacob says, we've got to agree on as a problem, connecting us, leading us to a place of vulnerability and thus belonging. Thank you so much to Jacob Norby for sharing his thoughts on these questions. Find more about Jacob at jacobnorby.com. There'll be links to all the contributors in the show notes. I really wanted Jacob on. He's just such an inspiration. He wrote Blessed Are the Weird, which I featured heavily in a series of podcasts last year, because it's just a book that touched me in massive ways. And I interviewed Jacob, and it's one of those conversations that was like, wow, something's happened here. I'm not sure what it is.
I see this crisis as an opportunity for humanity to redirect its attention from the incessant bickering, the self-interest, and the violence that we have experienced for so long. It's an opportunity to evolve our way of being in the world by working together for the good of all humanity and the planet. And I do believe on the other side of this crisis, we will be stronger. I see us coexisting in this world in more constructive and beneficial ways. It's like a big awakening. And together we can all rise to a higher state of consciousness and make the world a better place. And that's what I hope for.
Wow. Yeah. Wouldn't this be amazing? We all get to take this possibility and embrace a sense of agency and responsibility around it. You know, it's not for someone else to make happen or for the other people to mess up. Thank you so much to Carol Chapman for sharing her beautiful, calming thoughts. Just such a peaceful presence. You can connect with Carol at heartsriseup.com. I met her through the INF summit that Lauren Sapala and Jazz Hoti hosted earlier this year, and had a really nice chat with her recently, which will be up on the Hearts Rise Up podcast at some point in the next few months. Her and her team are doing amazing things over there, so do go and check that out. Yeah, so I'm reminded here, you know, of how we connect with the very way that we connect with the idea of other people, you know, of crowds, of swells in human behavior. And I'm becoming aware of, you know, the language that I use personally around sort of peopling. I keep calling it peopling because it happens a lot, especially when referring to collective movements. You know, the stockpiling of food, the so-called panic buying thing. It's a good example. You know, people are going mad. People are buying all the food. People need to calm down. What's wrong with people? And I've noticed this tendency to disassociate from the collective, to create this almost this monstrous picture of people. They're selfish. Why are people being so selfish? And when broken down, it's not what you find when you enter into the individual stories of people. Yeah, there are a few people acting without any thought of others. I mean, that's always the case. But when we actually take time to listen to stories of individuals, people have been acting rationally to start with. You know, it's not panic buying, but rational buying, responding to the warnings that people have heard. You know, this is just acting in quite normal, expected ways. But when behavior is multiplied over an entire culture in a short period of time, the results look extreme, and a rupture in the normal habits can appear apocalyptic. It can appear like we're just monstrous. But we need to stay rooted and embedded in the collective. I'm not special or different. I'm a part of this. Just like when we say things like, you know, no one's doing anything. Why is no one doing anything about this? Or when are they going to do something about this? When's someone going to change this? You know, if we pause for a second, we might hear that little voice within that statement saying, dude, who is no one? Who is they? Who are people? Who is someone? Maybe it's me.
So what might this crisis make possible for us? Well, so far the crisis has already made me 100 times more grateful for my lifestyle than ever before. I do all of my work online. My client work goes on just the same as my clients are also 100% remote. And they're also in industries like coaching, astrology, mindfulness, which are still currently thriving even in this climate. And that wasn't any deliberate foreshadowing move by me. It was just dumb luck and following my own passions. So I hope this will help others to recognise the things in their life to be grateful for as well. When the important things are threatened, we start to realise just how important they are. And that's the other thing that I think we're all experiencing right now. The difference between the things that actually matter to us to the things that actually don't and that we can get by without. And when we recognise that, I'm hoping that when this crisis lifts, we can actually keep hold of that sense of our priorities in life and actually make better, more compassion-driven decisions in our lives going forward.
Yeah, really, really like that, Kat. It's really interesting to reflect on. Thank you so much to Kat Rose for her contributions. The creativeintrovert.com is where you can find Kat. You may well have come across her in other places. We were actually supposed to be doing a kind of a UK introvert meetup on April the 4th, which has obviously been cancelled now. But we're going to do something online instead, and Jazz Hoti as well is going to be involved in that. I'll have more information on that very soon, but just keep an eye out. We'll have information on our websites, and we'll send emails out and stuff. So it's likely to be 7 p.m. UK time on Saturday, April the 4th, but that's to be confirmed. And that's next week at the time of releasing this podcast. So yeah, like it's this moment of soul searching and perspective where we get to consider what truly matters to us. We're given a chance to make little adjustments to normal life. In fact, in the midst of this, we have no idea what normal life will be. Yeah, in fact, will it be able to return to what it was? That Badiou idea of a rupture creating an event that leaves the old impossible to return to. Like the idea of evolution, it's onwards, it can't go backwards. The event horizon. And even if it doesn't create mass societal change, it can impact us as individuals. And we can draw on this moment as a game changer for us. What's it teaching us? What are we learning? And this is true for so many moments in our lives. If we allow them to change us and to help us grow. I was talking with Kat and Jazz earlier this week, kind of discussing this meetup. And we'd said that we've all experienced a little wake up. We're healthier than we have been for ages. We're being mindful about our routines and the things that we're giving time to and the things that are sucking energy from us and draining us, just becoming aware of those things. And this is something that Lauren Sapala is noticing as well.
Well, I have to say, this is just my personal experience. I'm teaching a class right now on intuition. I coach a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people. I email with a lot of people. So many people right now are experiencing huge personal shifts. Like they are just letting go of baggage they've been carrying for 20, 30, 40 years. Like old hang-ups, old patterns. I really do feel like this whole thing, part of it, it's a pattern disruptor. We have been forced to sit and take a great big pause. And everyone's sort of asking themselves, what do I want out of life? How do I want to navigate my relationships? What's important to me? I've heard from at least 5 people in the last week who said, I always knew I hated my day job, but now I really want to accelerate my exit plan. And this is the time to do it. So I do feel like we're in the middle of a big shift here. And it might be messy and it might be really intense, but it's okay. It's all going to be okay. All is well. That's what I keep telling people and myself.
It's fascinating to hear this stuff. Yeah, thanks so much to Lauren Sapala. Many of you will know Lauren from other places. She's a writer, coach for introverted creative types. I really like these ideas, the shift of consciousness, the rupture. I kind of love that word, rupture. I've said it a few times today. It's so evocative and it seems to be so appropriate. A rupture, to break, to tear apart. It suggests that that sense of something that can't be put back together again, at least not in the same way, not in the same form that it once was. And that is why this poses a chance to reflect on how we proceed and what lies at the heart of our values as we proceed, the possibilities.
I think what's possible going forward from this current world situation, it really depends on what we do with this time. We can use it wisely, or if we're not careful, this time will pass and we will have done nothing with it. So following this global quiet that's happening, if we take this time to turn inwards, to be reflective, to work on ourselves, connect to ourselves, connect to others, and remember what it's like to just enjoy the moment. Now, a lot of people have more time on their hands, and it may be challenging to remember what that's like. We're usually always doing something. We've got something more to do. So enjoy the moment. And if we continue along this line, then I think we really do have a possibility to create a more peaceful and connected world as we come out of this current situation. So I encourage you to really think about it. What kind of a world do you want to live in as we come out of this? And let that guide your choices of what you do with your time now, so that you don't waste your time now. And we create a momentum going forward to a peaceful and connected world.
I met Ben on a call that Faris Khalife hosted last week on the topic of high sensitivity and kind of what it means to be a highly sensitive person, that kind of stuff. I was just really struck by his gentle presence and his way of seeing things. And I just knew he would add value with these questions. I was just really pleased that he was able to contribute. You can find out more about what he does through his website, peacekeeperproject.com. The introductory words on the site tells you everything you need to know. at these uncertain times in the world, now is a time when we need more stillness, peace, and people connected to their heart. Oh, yes.
When the pressure's on and when we're squeezed, that's when we really know what's in us, don't we? And it's not always what we'd hope it would be. We're seeing extreme polarization, I think, of love and compassion and care. And we're also seeing intense fear and panic and frenzy and selfishness. But seeing that and being aware of that, I think is a good thing, because if we take note, then it's a huge opportunity to grow. It's a massive opportunity to mature and step forward when we see our shadow sides just laid bare out in the open. I think it can be tremendously healthy if we respond right. And the world is changing, the world has changed, and going forward it's going to be different. And I think it's going to be our ability to create and innovate and show ingenuity and to adapt that's going to determine whether we flourish or whether we struggle. And I've been thinking about Shakespeare along these lines, because he was an actor, and he was an actor when the times of the plague, during the 1600s. And there were long periods when theatres were shut down to stop the spread of the plague, so he couldn't get on the stage and act. And there's a lot of evidence to point to that was the time that he wrote stuff such as King Lear and Macbeth. So it was his adaptability and use of creativity that created some of the most revered and loved work that the world's known. So, that's what I think. I think if we respond well, there can be a lot of growth and a lot of creativity in all areas of life.
I just love how Mark talks about this stuff with a kind of gentle reverence for the creative process. By far the nicest approach to Shakespeare's plague lockdown years. So thanks, Mark Pierce, for conveying that. It's such a lovely spiriting way. You can find out more about Mark at revelator.com. He's written a beautiful book called The Creative Wound, which is available where books are sold. It's a really great sort of uplifting look at the things that kind of bring us away from our creative hearts and how to get back to that. He's got loads also to offer as a music producer, a designer, photographer, much of which he can do remotely. So even with physical distancing, he is your person for creative project needs. So go and check him out, revelator.com. So Lydia as well taps into this idea of an opportunity to reflect on what we've kind of slept or sleepwalked. Is that the right term? Sleepwalked into, both as individuals and society.
And this is also what I see as a huge potential, like personal growth. There is powerful potential for personal growth. And there is the opportunity for the whole world to heal on a level it has not happened in the past hundreds of years. So we can also reflect on our own behavior. How much are we flying? What are we eating? How are we dealing with what is at hand? And what can be our contribution? So it is on an external level and on an internal level that there are like massive, powerful ways forward. And I do see that we as people can come together even more, to have more empathy for each other, to have more compassion towards each other. For me, for example, it's a challenge to be compassionate with people who don't have my opinion. So I have beautiful ways of practicing that at the moment. And I just want to send my love to all people out there. Obviously, if people need help, if you're struggling with business, feel free to reach out to me, as my business is stable and I love to do free talks at the moment, free calls with people who are really struggling massively. And also people with depression, people with any kinds of mental illnesses. I do hope that people reach out to them and connect with them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Lydia. I find it so exciting that there's so many people with these kinds of hopes and dreams, just simple stuff like compassion, awareness, practice of living with grace and empathy for people who might not share the same opinions and beliefs, but do share that fundamental similarity, which is shared humanity, living through a shared moment, camaraderie. Something about that in any situation that draws people closer and connects us. You know, when we engage in shared projects, especially when there's a kind of element of struggle involved. I mean, that's at the heart of any good story as well, isn't it? It tightens the bond. It transcends the surface level differences. These last few years have been full of niggly divisions and fighting, much of which is underpinned by an inability to see the humanness. We're constantly dehumanizing the other people who are different. And compassion has been missing. So we've been engaging in ways that we just look straight past one another. And so is this a moment of change? Is it possible? Well, of course it's possible. And a huge thanks to Lydia Wilmsen. And head to Lydia's website, lydiawilmsen.com, LYDIAWILMSEN.com, to find out more about what she's offering. And she sort of mentioned some of the stuff there. Get involved in her Facebook group. Check out other live events and stuff she's offering through this period. So many great resources. And all of the contributors are so generous with their time and energy, giving so many amazing things away for free. And that's, as I say, one of the things that I've noticed through this situation, this genuine desire to connect and help from so many beautiful souls. Very little in the way of efforts to cash in as well, which is very spiriting and very heartening. Neil, I'm going to let you finish because I really, as I said earlier, love your honesty and your extreme ended responses, and absolutely feel you. Yeah.
Honestly, like, the range of outcomes is so wide. I genuinely have no idea where to start answering that question, because it could usher in a new dark age quite easily. Like, it's easy to imagine that, the total collapse of everything, or it could create a new utopia. So I think at the very least we're all going to be washing our hands more in future, which is nice. But apart from that, I have no idea what's going to happen. Like, we could end up... I'm quite optimistic, like, at heart, despite all the weird things going on in the world, where you look out and you see people swerving Corona beer for some reason, or fighting over toilet roll, or whatever it is. Despite all that, I'm very optimistic about people, and part of me thinks that this could be the time that we, wake up a bit and we build a new social safety net. We become more aware of how we need to cooperate and how we need community and charity, and to look out for the people who really need help, and all of that. But equally, we could all just fight to the death over the last remaining slice of piece of pasta. So, humans, what are we going to do? So, yeah, that's my thoughts, really. I think, like, everything's very uncertain. And I don't think there's any way of having more certainty than we currently have. I think we're all just kind of rolling with it and seeing where we go. But I am liking the way that there is, amongst the people I know and the people, my bubbles online, there's been a lot of people reaching out and trying to connect and trying to create something meaningful and something beautiful in all of this. And I hope that that's good. And fingers crossed everything else turns out good as well. Okay, well, thanks for letting me ramble at you about these things. I hope this is useful and you can cut some bits out of it that will help create something also beautiful. Good work, man. See you soon. Bye-bye.
I love it. Thanks, Neil. It's quite possible that we will all be a lot more hygienic from here on in, and we won't run out of toilet paper for years to come. I share Neil's optimism, and also some of the other side of it. I love it. There's something about the safety net of what a national government can do for society that has come right back into focus as well. After years of chipping away at this health service, for example, here in the UK, and other national institutions like education and that kind of thing, these things are so important and part of a shared investment as a community and society. Even the notion of paying tax, feeling connected to that whole process, we suddenly feel more plugged into all of that, more invested, more a part of that system, not just anonymous little vessels. It feels like a privilege to have a system whereby through physical distancing we're protecting this great institution that we're all invested in, and that's invested in us. Wouldn't it be wonderful to see that passion and perspective reinvigorated after years of that chipping away due to kind of taking things for granted, allowing private interests to worm in and to be so comfortable with that world that we take for granted that we don't realise the amazingness of what we have. So yeah, thanks, Neil. By the way, Neil, he's a writer, comedian, a public speaker, and he's just a great guy. It just makes me laugh. And he delivers talks on anxiety in schools, and as many hundreds of thousands of people have watched his TEDx talk, which is all about the link between anxiety and custard, which again is another British institution, I think. You can find out more about Neil. His website is enthusiasm.com. So N-E-N Hughes IASM IASM.com. So yeah, that's kind of it. And a massive thank you to those who've contributed to this episode. I just thought it would be a good one to get some external input on. I hope this has been kind of helpful for you. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's been semi-entertaining. If you want to keep getting weekly episodes of the Gentle Rebel podcast, it's now gone down to a monthly thing, just so I've got more energy and time to throw into creating episodes like this, because from time to time I kind of like the idea of just like having a big blowout and putting something like this out. But if you want to keep getting weekly episodes and go a bit deeper and more personal into, into my own kind of sharing of stuff, I do a private feed through Patreon, and I kind of share more candid, unscripted episodes, talk about my music, I share more songs and talk about, new ideas that some of them may or may not make it onto the main monthly show. But yeah, it's a great way to just support the continued creation of the podcast and other stuff that I'm doing. It's just $3 a month to get all of that stuff and to get all previous stuff as well. Go to patreon.com/Andy Mort to find out more about how you can do that. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. I really hope you're okay. I'd love to just ask you a big favour before we go. The best thing you can do to support the podcast, other than Patreon, is just to rate and comment on the show wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's through Apple or Stitcher or Google or whatever. If just give a nice little rating and a review if you've got time. It just helps to get this show and previous episodes of it into more of the ears of people searching for the kind of help and support and encouragement around the topics that we're exploring. Be really grateful if you could do that. But yeah, no worries. If you please do reach out if you've got any. If you're just feeling a bit lonely or whatever during this time. I'm going to finish with my song "Traveller," which is one I wrote 10 years ago. After being stuck in Stockholm because of the ash cloud that came from that Icelandic volcano with a really hard to pronounce name. And this song came out of being inspired by a conversation that I had with a French bloke in a Swedish sauna. And this feels like a suitable moment of kind of international connection and, similar restriction in movement around the world. And this is either a highly appropriate or highly inappropriate way to end this podcast. But I just thought it might be nice. So that's what I'm going to finish with.
Staker claimed it, destroy my name with love. Fake the same old stupid game and run. I'm a traveler who's scared to move. A traveler. I'm a traveler who's scared of moving on. Sliding pieces fall to bits and form. shelter from the storm. I'm a traveler who's scared to move. A traveler. I'm a traveler who's scared of moving on. I'm a traveler traveler who's scared to move things on. I'm a traveler who's scared of moving on.
All right, I'll be back again next time with another episode of the podcast. Until then, do remember, you're an artist, the world needs your art. Now go and make somebody's day and stay safe. Goodbye.